So after college, with the few friends, we had a real strategic plan, right? Let's sell all our shit. This was the bike I rode, and go ride around Europe for 3 months. And so I thought, hey, when I'm over there, might as well stop in and see if I can talk to some of these, the greatest, right? Like Cinelli and some of the other Italians who really made great stuff. We went over and talked to Cino Cinelli, and he said, sure, I'll sell you our products. And so that was the start. Okay, the name, in some ways it really wasn't that thoughtful. And it really wasn't. I better not call it Mike's Bikes or Mike's Parts. It doesn't sound very international, right? Doesn't sound that good. So I thought, well, in Italy, if somebody's like a frame builder like Mers would be an artigiano, an artist, right? And if you're really into something, you're a specialist, right? So I thought, okay, specialized. And so that's how I came up with the name Specialized.
So my question is, what realizations in business did you have in a business model that helps you be successful to the point where you've been able to survive and grow this big?
Sometimes I wonder every day. My wife wonders too. I tell her these problems. But, I would say it's, thanks for asking that, Ned. It's really simple. It is so simple. So in the very beginning, remember I told I started the company, and Mers joined the company, and then BB. It's always about the people. Always. It's only that. When you have great people, it's fun, and you always figure it out.
So I was riding across the U.S. with my wife. We were touring, kind of stopping along the West Coast, stopped by Specialized, stopped by some other brands. I contacted Specialized, say I'm riding my bike, I'm a designer. I'm a rider for the most. And they just like, okay, stop by here. We've been looking for a guy like you for a long time. I came there and they wouldn't let me go. It's like, we need you. I said, okay, I'm not ready for this. I'm out riding my bike. And Mike brought me on this ride and he almost killed me. You picked me up at 7 o'clock in the morning and we went out on an 8-hour ride in the Santa Cruz Mountain. Yeah. I think he knew that I was a decent designer, but he wanted to try me out as a rider. And we went riding and I almost died up there. But I made it, and I thought that was like the proof of concepts. Like, this guy, he's all right. He knows bikes. Most people who are interested in bikes, there's a lot of me, but if you're a hardcore rider, you're welcome here. I think that's the benchmark of our company today, and when we hire people. There's so many talented young designers out there that know everything about shape and design and function and fashion, but if they're not riders, they don't really know what they're talking about. You got to be out there and really do your thing.
You're now the head of a top 3 bike company in the world, and yet you're going into the office every day. What is that drives you? I mean, with that many people working for you and as big of a machine as you've built, you're still in the office on a regular basis. I guess,
Yeah, because my wife Linda says, I don't want you working at home.
So you're not buying an island and going somewhere with your wife?
No, in all seriousness, part of that's true. But yeah, I do go in every day, and I like to help the team. Probably a lot of times I'm probably a hindrance because I drill down too deep into things. But yeah, I love what I do. I love what bikes do for people in the world.
Same vein, is there a major threat to Specialized right now? Whether it's a region, technology, internal, what's your biggest threat right now? you think? as
Well,
a
I always
business?
say the three biggest threats are ABC: arrogance, bureaucracy, and complacency. Those are the three friggin' things that'll kill you. And sometimes we display those things, right? We do, and we don't want to, but we do. So I think it's always to keep driving and doing better, and to make sure that we really have a culture that people can challenge, things and make things better. Because the most common thing that will predict demise is success. So if you're successful, then you think you got it figured out. And as soon as you think you got it figured out, you're finished.
Great. Here's another one. Are there any past failures or close calls that you would be comfortable speaking about right now?
This last week. You know, there's a lot of failures all the time. Those of us who work together, we know it's like, and there's a lot of failures all the time. You know, I love the Chinese symbol for crisis. Does anybody know what that looks like? But the Chinese symbol for crisis has two symbols. One is danger, and the other one is opportunity. So it's always like that. Yeah, I'll never forget. I remember when Jim and BB were at the company. We were buying these tires from this Japanese manufacturer who was really good, and they sent a note. They go, "Hey, there's 1,500 tires that we just sent you of those turbo tires, and we think there might have been 5 or 6 that were in the defective batch that got in there, and we don't know where they are." And they go, "So just destroy them. Don't use those tires." And I thought, you know what? That is powerful. Because they could have just let us go with those tires. So we put them up on the mezzanine, and so all of us as employees, we just rode the tires. And we used them all, but we never found one that was bad. But the power is that honesty to go, to not let anything get through.
In that, so many of Specialized's greatest achievements have come from understanding the customer's desires before anybody else does. What makes you feel like your intuition or your team's intuition keeps Specialized ahead of the pack?
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you were inside, you would know that we're always complaining, or I am complaining about the things that we don't get, that we are missing. But I'd say one of the reasons that the things that we do get is because of people like Eric Nolan that are living it, right? Or Sean or Kevin. They're living that category. And so a lot of times they'll come up with things and they'll go, "Hey, this is the way it should be." And sometimes I go, "No, that's not right." But then you go, they're so deep into it, go. So I would say it's always about the people in the category. If we're successful in a category, it's because we have people that are just deep in it. It's always that way. Well, you know, thinking about a bad ride, as long as you finish the ride, it's never bad, right? In fact, some of the best rides are the most, start off or in the middle, is the most miserable, raining and terrible. Those end up to be the most fantastic in the end. What's that?
What about the deer?
The what?
The deer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a bad ride. I was going down a hill and this deer ran out in front of me. That was bad.
Did you hit?
At top speed. Yeah, that was, thank you, Linda. That was one of the worst rides. I got hit by a deer. Oh my gosh. You know, it just ran into it. I could smell it. It was just right there.
Why'd you choose Morgan Hill as your headquarters?
People wonder that all the time. especially the people that work there. You know,
Since early on, you've Specialized has always had a quiver of accomplished riders. What about being involved in high-level competition is important to you? Was it marketing or product development, or both?
I would say we learned so much, and
Was there, sorry to interrupt you, is there a particular product that really was really tested, truly tested on the racetrack before it was brought to the fold for the public?
well, I would say for the 28 years, Ned has been one of the very, very best testers in the world as far as tires, shoes, the frame, the wheels. You know, a lot of riders are really, really strong, and some can really tell you the difference, and some riders, everything's good, right? Unless they don't win. On the roadside, I would say Tom Boonen in particular have really raised our game. Because the first bikes that we put Tom out on, they weren't strong enough because he's such a strong horse. And we couldn't figure out what is it? How do we make this bike stronger? And people riding it at work, some of you guys remember that, and you go, hey, there's no problem. We took it out on a lunch ride and it's fine. But you know what? There's a different world between normal, strong people taking it out on a lunch ride and somebody like Tom Boonen. But we learned a lot, how we, kind of in the same way when Mers was working with us and knowing how to build the frame, but we really changed a lot in the change days. So we've learned a lot over the years how to make the bike better and better. And Tom Boonen was really big for that.
Great. I have a question here actually from the internet from Dan Richter, owner of Cafe Roubaix. So he wants to know, today's bicycle industry is very competitive with so many bicycle companies that come and go and many bicycle shops that only last a few years. What would your advice be to a new velo entrepreneur?
Well, so I think the first thing is to do what you love. And I also tell my kids the same thing, which is your life's not for rent, so do what you love to do. And if you do what you love to do, and you do it in the best way, it's going to be fine. And one of the things, I talked about the economies of tiny. And I think especially now with the internet and connections, that you can really operate with a very low overhead. Like my dad always used to say, son, being rich is living well below your means. So that's what being rich is, right? And not having the stuff own you. But I think having a store is just, or any business is like, what is your point of view? Having a great point of view. And Dan, knowing you're really a focused guy who loves bikes. Then say, what is the focus of, what are you going to bring? What is your unique position? And then just drill in on that. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to the old guy talk up here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, before you jump off there, is there anything else you want to kind of conclude with?